Alex Anthopoulos kicks off the offseason with a flurry of moves, signing Raisel Iglesias and trading for Mauricio Dubon. We'll talk about that on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. Also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network. I am your host again, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on Twitter at Shortstop Ball. You can find me or find the podcast on social media at LockedOn_Braves on X, Locked On Braves on Instagram, or wherever you get your social media from, TikTok, Facebook. We're all over the place now at Locked On Braves, especially on YouTube. And if you're there, do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about these big moves that the Braves made on Wednesday night. You listen on the audio version, you can help out too. Just leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. And big shout out to all my everydayers out there. And yes, we are responding to the big news coming out on Wednesday night. The Braves signing Raisel Iglesias, trading for Mauricio Dubon. What does this all mean for the rest of the offseason? Do the Braves actually have money to spend? We'll talk about all of that in today's episode, which is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the FanDuel app today. Taking a big breath. It's a lot of news coming in here late on a Wednesday night, trying to, enjoy a night, at church with the family, eating dinner. And of course, this is when AA makes all the moves, but they are some big moves. So we got to talk about them. And the first one that I want to discuss is Raisel Iglesias, who they bring back on 1 year, $16 million. They also traded Nick Allen from Mauricio Dubon, which we'll talk about in the second segment. I got some very interesting thoughts on that, so make sure you stick around. But let's focus on Iggy here in this first segment. Turns 36 on January 4th, also happens to be my birthday. He's actually 2 years younger than me, so there's my age for you. I'm feeling really old at the moment. Numbers for Iggy, obviously fantastic. He has an expected ERA of 3.16 or lower in 6 straight seasons. His 3.21 actual ERA last year in 2025 was his highest mark since 2019 and his third highest ERA of his career that now spans 10 seasons. So I say all that to tell you how incredibly good and consistent Raisel Iglesias has been. The fact that the 3.21 ERA that he had in a down year in 2025 was just the third highest ERA of his career. He has been unbelievable for a 10-year span now, and even going into his age 36 season, I expect him to be really, really good. Now, we all know what happened in 2025. We know about the awful first half that he had, a lot of it due to that slider, him hanging a lot of those sliders, and those hanging sliders getting hit out of the ballpark. That was the big issue for Raisel Iglesias in the first half. He ditched that slider for most of the second half, or at least dialed it back a ton, and we saw him look like the normal Raisel Iglesias in the second half, a 1.76 ERA, just a 136 batting average against over his final 30 2/3 innings pitched. He looked like Iggy once again, and that led into obviously this offseason where a lot of teams were interested in him, and we thought the Braves would likely try to bring him back. Now, as I've been talking about this offseason, I was hoping you could get him back for more, around 12 million, something like that, somewhere more into the area that, you sign up for that amount. Yeah, he's probably your closer to start, but it's not like you feel like you have to force him into that position if things aren't going well. But you sign him for $16 million. He's your closer. I mean, Iggy is your closer. This is your big move for a bullpen arm this offseason. I would be excited and absolutely shocked if they went out and signed another reliever this offseason for more than $10 million. I'd be honestly a little shocked if they sign another reliever for more than $8 million this offseason. But who knows? Maybe the Braves are just spending big money this year. Now, it is a one-year deal, so obviously there's not a lot of long-term risk to it, but it is $16 million for Raisel Iglesias, a 36-year-old who, again, as I said, has been great and very consistent, but you can't ignore the bad first half that he had in 2025 either. But even in, again, the quote unquote down season, he picked up 29 saves and he has 7 seasons of at least 28 saves. So he's very comfortable and very familiar with that closer role. The strikeout rate is not what it once was. He had it over 30% earlier in his career. It's been dialed back more to 26, 27%, which is still really good. And I don't think anybody views Raisel Iglesias as an overpowering type of closer, certainly not one with a high velocity. His four-seam fastball actually took a step back velocity-wise in 2025, almost 1 mile per hour, but it's kind of set around 94, 95 for the last several years, going back and forth. And that's, it's not anything to sniff at either. We even know he can get it to 96, 97 at times. We've seen him with outings like that. So again, while we don't think of him as this overpowering, dominant strikeout type of pitcher, he has that ability and he has that stuff in him. And that changeup is just still one of the best changeups in all of baseball. It had a 41% whiff rate last year, but he was actually really unlucky with the changeup last season. Batters hit 277 against his changeup, but had an expected batting average of just 217. In the previous 7 seasons before 2025, batters never hit more than 206 in a single season against that changeup, with most years it's sitting somewhere at 150, 160 range. So if that normalizes in 2026, and he gets a little bit more luck on that changeup with balls in play, and it's sitting more in that 160, 170 range, you could see Raisel Iglesias have another one of just straight good years from beginning to end, and not have so much of those hiccups. And he proved, which I somewhat doubted in that first half when he was going to have to ditch the slider. I said, I don't know if he can still be as effective not having that slider to go after righties, but he proved that he can still be really good even without the slider. Now, if that's, the changeup, you start getting better results on that changeup like you have in the past, and you can get that slider back, then, you're talking about being one of the best relievers in baseball again, like he had been for the Atlanta Braves for the past, 3 years, or ever since they acquired him from the Angels. So I still would love to see him be able to get that slider back, but I was at least happy to see that he showed he can still be good even without that slider. Now, this can't be the only bullpen move of the offseason. Like I said, this is your big one. This is your closer. But the question now is, how much do you have left to spend on the bullpen? You now have nearly $35 million tied up in 3 relievers. And one of those, you aren't sure if they're going to be healthy in 2026. We did get an update from Alex on Joe Jimenez, who said he had another procedure to clean up that left knee, and they won't know his status until they get to spring training. And the other one, Aaron Bummer, you don't know how the Braves are going to use him if they view him as a high leverage reliever. And you can throw Lee in there as well. And so you got 4 guys for about $36.5 million tied up for 2026 in your bullpen. And that leaves you with 2 guys that you feel pretty decent about now. And Iggy and Dylan Lee, you don't know the status of Joe Jimenez. And besides that, he hasn't pitched in a long time either, while we're all hoping he's going to come back and be a dominant setup reliever. But, that's an if at this point. And we don't know, again, how they're going to use or view Aaron Bummer. But let's assume Iggy, Lee, Bummer, and Jimenez are ready to go beginning of the season. So you got 4 guaranteed relievers there, 4 locks in your bullpen. Let's assume that one other spot goes to a swingman like a Dylan Lee or like a Jose Suarez. So that's 5 spots. That's still 3 spots you need to fill. At bare minimum, you got to find two more relievers this offseason, which are either going to have to come through, at least $5 to $8 million in free agency, or either in some sort of trade. So there's still a lot of work left to be done in the bullpen this offseason. I don't think that you can just rely on Daysbull and on Carlos Lara being able to throw enough strikes to earn a bullpen spot. There's also the wild cards of Ronaldo Lopez and Grant Holmes. We got an update on Grant Holmes today too, which I'll talk about later. You don't know how those 2 are going to figure into the mix as well. If you find another starter this offseason, do you just bump Lopez to the bullpen until maybe he's needed in the rotation? So there's still some variance of circumstances here that could decide the bullpen roles. But again, just knowing what you have now and what you see, there's at bare minimum 2 other spots this offseason that need to be filled in the bullpen. And we'll see what Alex has left to do with those spots. Now, next, I want to get into the trade for Mauricio Dubon. This cannot be the answer at shortstop, right? We'll talk about it here next. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. You can check out FanDuel.com right now, where they have a World Series odds out there. Did the Braves move up with this trade for Dubon? No, they're still at plus 2,000, but we'll see if that gets updated here soon or not. They also have odds out there for NBA, the NBA Finals, awards, playoffs, division, NBA Cup, all of that. You can see it there at FanDuel.com. Also, please make sure you visit FanDuel.com/play-safe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. Go check out Locked On Astros as well. I'm sure we'll be covering this down from the Astros point of view. I'm going to have some comments from those guys here in a second as well. And make sure you subscribe here to Locked On Braves. We'll have more coverage of these moves the rest of the week. And who knows, maybe Alex isn't done. Maybe he's trying to get everything done before Thanksgiving dinner. So make sure you're subscribed here to Locked On Braves on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, getting into the second big move of the night, and that is the trade for Mauricio Dubon from the Astros for Nick Allen. Now, Dubon, he's 31, turns 32 in July, right-handed hitter, projected to make about just under $6 million in his final year of arbitration before becoming a free agent. So this is a rental player who's making a significant bit of money. I mean, this is $4 or $5 million more than what Nick Allen was projected to make. So you're taking on some money here on a guy that is a rental player. Looking at Dubon's numbers over parts of 7 seasons in the big leagues, he's slashed 257, 295, 374 with an 85 WRC plus. That doesn't seem like a lot, but when you consider what the Braves have been getting at the shortstop position the last 3 years, I believe it was 72, 74 WRC plus that we talked about last week. That's 10 points higher than what they've been getting at the shortstop position. It's a 117 ISO, not a lot of power, 4.9% walk rate, not a ton of walks, just a 14.3% strikeout rate, though. He will put the ball in play, and only 22 steals. Somebody that has the speed that he has, you'd hope that'd be a little bit higher. Maybe Anton Richardson can help out in that department. He's played in over 130 games in 3 straight seasons with the Astros, mainly being a bench utility guy who fills in for injured players here or there, and he's still gotten over 130 games over the last 3 seasons. In 2023, his best year, that also was the juiced baseball year. He posted a 97 WRC plus with 10 homers, his only double-digit home run season, and he did that in 132 games. The positives when I look at Dubon mainly come from the defensive side of things and his positional versatility. He is somebody that can play everywhere, and he can play everywhere quite well. He had a fielding run value of 17 last year. Now, you know me, I don't put a lot of stock in defensive metrics, but that's all I really have to go on. I haven't watched a ton of Mauricio Dubon, and that was the 6th best fielding run value in all of baseball last year, leading to him winning a Gold Glove as utility player, his 2nd Gold Glove in the past 3 years. So, even without having to watch a lot of film, even if I don't put too much stock into data, it tells you he's a pretty good defender. I mean, you don't win 2 Gold Gloves. Maybe you have a good season, you win 1. You don't have that great of data unless you are a good defender. So you're getting somebody who's also a good defender, like Nick Allen, who was a Gold Glove finalist this past year. In 2025, he played every position except for pitcher and catcher. I don't know. Maybe he got some late innings as a pitcher. It didn't come up when I looked at his fielding stats, though. But he is very, very versatile. Can play all 3 outfield spots. Can play first, second, third, and shortstop. Of the 46 players who made at least 100 throws from shortstop last year, He had the 15th strongest arm from shortstop, just ahead of Nick Allen. But his max throw last year was 95.1. Now, that's not fair because obviously you can throw harder in the outfield where you're going to get a lot more momentum on your throws. He averaged 90.4 miles per hour from the outfield. So, has a pretty decent arm to be able to play on the left side of the infield at shortstop specifically. Offensively, the only real positive I can give you on him offensively is that he puts the bat on the ball. Now, the other thing is that he hits lefties pretty well too. Now, it's a short side platoon, so I wouldn't get too excited about that. But a career 283 batting average against lefties and a 762 OPS. So even if he, isn't your starter and he's coming off the bench, you can still use him against lefties late in game. It's not that prototypical, power bench bat coming off the bench, to hit a big home run for you against the lefty late, but somebody that does have pretty good numbers against lefties. You could start him against lefties. Like I said, use him a pinch hitter against lefties and then bring him in defensively. It gives you a guy, kind of like I talked about yesterday, that you can just do a lot of different things with and improves your depth and your bench, assuming he's going to be on your bench, because this can't be the answer at shortstop, right? I mean, if this is it, and AA's already kind of hinted at the fact that he's comfortable if Dubon happens to be the shortstop, if nothing else works out this offseason, but did, leave it open to they are still searching for that shortstop. This is just a fallback option, and that AA views him as that Swiss Army knife. I would love to have Mauricio Dubon as my utility bench guy. I think this is definitely improving your depth and your bench, what I have been asking for. If he's the starting shortstop, though, I'm going to be I'm not going to say upset necessarily, but I'm definitely going to be left wanting more if this is going to be the move for shortstop. And if it is, and nothing else works out, you can't sign Ha-Seong Kim, you're not going to sign Bo Bichette, you can't find that trade partner out there to really upgrade the shortstop position, then that really puts a lot of pressure to find a bat elsewhere, which I've been asking for anyway, in addition to upgrading the shortstop position. If this is it, and this is your shortstop, and then you don't also find another bat this offseason, that's going to be a real bummer. If this is your answer at shortstop, then okay, it is an upgrade at shortstop over Nick Allen, but then you also have to go find another bat. And I'm going to stop saying big bat. People taking offense to that in yesterday's episode. A good bat. You still have to go find a good bat. If this is going to be your shortstop, then you still have to go find a good bat. And I said that even if they get Kim, I still think they need to go find a good bat. And hopefully that is going to be the case. I want to read some comments from the guys over at Locked On Astros. They actually just did an interview with Dubon last month. So go over to Locked On Astros. I'll put it down into the show notes below. Go check out that podcast of their interview with Mauricio Dubon. But here were their comments on it. This coming from H-Town Willhouse, who said, great guy, vibes are immaculate, great glove, an upgrade from Nick, not much offense. So again, upgrade from Nick. Even the Astros guys are saying that. And I think that's definitely true. Eric Heisman, also the co-host over there at Locked On Astros, said he's a jack of all trades, great personality, which I'd love to hear that from both of these guys. Just bringing another great personality into this clubhouse. Eric also said we had him on the podcast last month. He's a platoon guy that got thrown into a full-time gig many times. Every time Alvarez would hit a homer, he'd look back at the sidelines reporter and shake his head. Best positions are shortstop and second base. Above average outfielder. I'm surprised they traded him. Pop-up machine. Folks don't want to hear that who have been watching Ozzie Albies, especially this past year, and decent contact rate. So I like these comments from these guys. Eric admitting somebody that needs to be a platoon guy, a bench guy, but he's been forced into full-time gigs. And look, that happens, and you need that. And I think if you had to, Ozzie gets hurt, you have to substitute Dubon for him for a couple of months. That's fine. Say you get Ha-Seong Kim and he gets hurt, and you have to sub in Mauricio Dubon for a couple of months. That's fine. That's almost replacement level offensively, but certainly you're getting at least a good defensive upgrade at those positions. And so that's what you're really wanting in your depth. So I appreciate those guys both for giving those comments. Again, go check out Locked On Astros, especially that interview that they had with Dubon last month. Now, the last thing that I really wanted to talk about here with these two moves is, do the Braves have money to spend? I mean, look, Iggy got more than I thought. Now, apparently there were a lot of teams that were in on Iglesias, including the Dodgers, and they were in on him at the same price point, around $16 million, and Iggy chose the Braves. So one, as my friend Grant McCauley said on social media, or posted a meme, it's glad to finally win one. And it's glad to have somebody, pick your team. But there were a lot of teams in on Iggy, probably pushed up that price. A lot of teams buying into the second half that he had, and not just the second half. Again, as I said earlier, Iggy has been on a 10-year run of being one of the best relievers in all of baseball. I mean, just consistently good for 10 straight years now. And so you can overlook that tough first half that he had in 2025. And a lot of teams bought into that, and that's why there were a lot of teams interested in him. So for him to pick the Braves, that feels pretty good. But it is more than I thought he would get going into his age 36 season, coming off what was, again, somewhat of a down year for him and a rough first half. I was hoping that maybe it would push the price point down a little bit into the $12 million range, but it didn't. And the Braves were still willing to give him that $16 million mark. So is there more money to spend here than maybe we thought? And also, too, a lot of people have noted the fact that maybe not trading him at the deadline helped the Braves keep him. I don't know. I wouldn't read too much into that. I think had the Braves gotten a solid offer, not just a money dump, the Braves weren't looking to just, save money at the deadline because they were going to stay under the tax at that point anyway. So it didn't matter. They weren't going to trade anybody unless they were getting something back of value. And I just think there weren't a lot of teams willing to give up much of value for Iggy at the deadline. If they were, then a trade would have been made. But, all's well is in well. And now you can look back and say, oh, I'm glad we kept him, didn't trade him. Maybe that kept helped him pick the Braves. I don't know. But either way, he did pick the Braves and they got him back and they spent a good bit of money to acquire him. And then the other thing too, is in the trade for Dubon, as I said earlier, this is the Astros just trying to save money. You heard the comment from Eric of Locked On Astros, who said that he was surprised that they traded him. But this is essentially just a money dump for the Astros. They're saving around $4 million in doing this deal. That's all they're really doing. I can't imagine they have many plans to use Nick Allen other than, just a bench player, utility, defensive replacement. And last said this about Nick Allen. And look, I'll go ahead and give Nick Allen his flowers now. Thank you for giving me something to enjoy and watch during the 2025 season in a year that there wasn't always a lot to get excited about when you turned on a Braves game, but as somebody who loves the shortstop position, loves shortstop defense, thank you, Nick Allen, for giving me that in 2025. But on the bad part now, don't listen to this part, Nick Allen. If he's not playing there every day, which sounds weird to say, there's just really not a lot of value for Nick Allen on your bench to have a defensive replacement for shortstop and second base. Normally your shortstop's going to hopefully be a pretty good defender anyway, and one of your better players. And so it never made sense to me to have Nick Allen on the bench. He wasn't really good at stealing bases and he can't hit. He's really just there to be a defensive replacement. And I want somebody that can do more than that. And Dubon can be that defensive replacement, and he can also handle lefties well. And he can fill in for a time for an injury and be somewhat okay with the bat. So again, it's an upgrade from Nick Allen. It's the Braves what the point I was trying to ultimately get here to, though, is that it's the Braves being willing to take on, more money in order to make that upgrade. So hopefully this is me obviously being optimistic, but hopefully this is a sign that the Braves are willing to spend more this offseason, because you look at these moves today, they essentially took on $20 million. And there's a lot of us out there guessing, myself included, that there may only be 40 to 45 million to spend this offseason. And you spent half of that on these two moves. And you still got a lot of moves left that you need to make, whether it be a starting pitcher, like I said, at least 2 more bullpen spots. So there's at least 3 moves that you got to make this offseason. Of course, you can do it through trades and not have to spend as much in free agency, but you still have a lot left to do this offseason. And these moves kind of showed me that they're okay taking on some money in doing all of this. So we'll have to see how everything else plays out. But I was a bit surprised that one, they went to $16 million on Iggy, and two, that they took on $4 million more to get somebody like Mauricio Dubon, who again in the end might just be a bench player for you, but it is improved depth on your team. So I'm happy with these moves, but again, this can't be it. And I see some of the comments too that this has to just be a start. And I get that. You've only just brought back Iggy for the bullpen. You haven't improved the bullpen beyond last year at this point. You've slightly upgraded the shortstop position over Nick Allen, but you didn't make some huge improvement to the team and getting Dubon for Allen. So again, with both of these moves, just comparing the team from last year to this year, you've gotten very, very slightly better than what you were last year, just with the upgrade from Allen to Dubon, because Iggy is just bringing back somebody that you had last year. So there's still a lot more work to be done, but I'm feeling pretty optimistic today that that's going to happen, and AA is going to get it done, and maybe get it done very soon, because he works very quickly, usually in the offseason, as we saw here on Wednesday night. All right, this wasn't the only news of the day for the Atlanta Braves. They also traded for a former first-round pick, and they're going to get to play in another showcase game this upcoming season. We'll talk about that here next. So signing Iglesias, trading for Dubon, that wasn't enough for the day of Wednesday. They also traded for former first-round draft pick Ryan Rollison out of Ole Miss, drafted by the Rockies, been playing with the Rockies. Now, this one's not quite as exciting. He was one of the worst pitchers in baseball last year. I can't imagine he stays on the roster all offseason, but we will see. He's a lefty, does have a minor league option left, which is what I imagine kind of drew some attention to him, at least having that option and that flexibility. But again, he was really, really bad last year. They've done a good job with Rockies relievers, though, so we'll see if that sticks. And the Braves will play the Brewers on August 23rd in the 2026 MLB Little League Classic in Williamsport. So that will be a lot of fun. I'm not big on the Little League World Series stuff. I know a lot of people are, but that'll still be a cool venue, and 2 years in a row the Braves getting to play in a special game like that, so that'll be really cool. And then I mentioned earlier, we had the update on Joe Jimenez. He had a procedure about a month ago to clean up that left knee, and they really won't know his status until spring training. And then also got an update from Alex Anthopoulos on Grant Holmes and his process. They're encouraged with it. Everything looks good so far, but they won't know for sure until he gets going in spring training. So a little difficult to kind of plan for this offseason when you got three pitchers that you just don't know, and three pitchers that could be a big part of your team in Ronaldo Lopez, Grant Holmes, and Joe Jimenez. So, a little unfortunate that that's the case with those guys. If they're all healthy, obviously, that's a big boon for your rotation and your bullpen, but you just don't know about those three guys right now. But a big day, big news day for the Atlanta Braves. Again, thank you, Nick Allen. I do really appreciate the services he gave to the Atlanta Braves last year. A lot of flack on him, again, as I've said the last 2 or 3 years. If the rest of the team were healthy and doing what they were supposed to be doing, you wouldn't worry about Arcia and Nick Allen hitting in the 9 spot. But those guys haven't been there, and you can't just go into another season and say, if these guys are healthy and if they produce, we can live with a lower level bat at the shortstop position in the 9 hole. And so this was an upgrade. You still get a great defender, but also somebody that's a little bit better with the bat and can do different things for you. So I do think this is a good move. But again, just to iterate my overall point on these two moves today, you got very, very slightly better with these two moves, but it is a step in the right direction for what's hopefully going to continue to be a big offseason for the Atlanta Braves. Thanks so much for joining me here live. Over 350 people with us in here live. Thank you so much for your support and joining me here. Jeffrey Humphreys, an everydayer. Andrew Chandler, Braves Thrills, another everydayer in here. The Wild One, Doc's Cars, another everydayer. Thank you so much for being with me here today. PJ's Braves. C. Fuller in here always leaves me a comment on every episode. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate all your support here. Soul Still Burns, Protect PR, BC, Joe Me, a lot of the everydayers in here today. Andrew Chandler, again, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, leave us a comment down below. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next.